America wasn't built for the car, it was bulldozed for it. Nowhere is this quote more apparent than in New England. I say this because it's in towns like Newburyport, Massachusetts, where the scars of early urban renewal can be witnessed firsthand.
And when the urban redevelopment program began to grow or began to become operative in Newburyport, these bulldozers came in, and in a matter of a few days, they just stripped the soil. There were wastelands, there were dust bowls where once there had been rather beautiful buildings, buildings that dated back to the 1800s and even before that.
But it's also in small New England towns like Newburyport where the struggle to save our downtowns began, and where it was often the most successful. In fact, I chose to make my first YouTube video about Newburyport because it was the first town in America to use urban renewal funds for pedestrian improvements and not on improvements for the car.
Restoration of buildings. Streets that had once been open to the automobile are now being reclaimed for the pedestrian. Federal and state funds, which were originally limited to auto traffic improvements, are being spent in pedestrian amenities, like brick and granite paving. City and urban renewal funds have been used for street lighting more compatible to the scale and character of the architecture. Businessmen have conformed to sign control restrictions, enhancing the appearance of buildings and suggesting a new awareness of the importance of maintaining a unified character in the downtown.
This video won't delve into that fight in any depth, because there's already a great documentary from the period covering it, and also because I plan on doing a follow-up to that documentary in the future. No, this video will be on the town in general, and why it's a good model for you to use in building your strong towns. Before we talk about urban planning in Newburyport, it's important to understand the history of one of America's oldest communities. Founded in 1635 and incorporated in 1764, the Clipper City has had a variety of industries as the core of its economy. Beginning with shipbuilding, the Clipper City was named after one of its great inventions, the Clipper ship, a fast merchant vessel used for hauling goods up and down the coast of America and beyond. The city was also known for its privateering and fishing, as well as a small silversmithing industry. Later in Newburyport's history, several railroads would reach it, chief among them the Eastern Railroad, running from Boston to Portsmouth and later to Portland, Maine. Sitting at the mouth of the Merrimack River, Newburyport also served as the outlet for many of the goods manufactured upstream in towns such as Lowell, Manchester, Concord, Nashua, or Haverhill. Newburyport today is home to a functional and mixed-use downtown with restaurants, coffee shops, and convenience stores. But the modern town would be almost unrecognizable to anyone who lived there almost 50 years ago. During the 1960s and 70s, Newburyport's downtown was largely abandoned and the buildings were dilapidated, falling apart. It was during this time that the city's leaders looked to urban renewal funds to try and save the city.
The bomb was urban renewal. The target was downtown Newburyport.
Efforts to save the downtown involved a plan to replace it with single-story structures and large parking lots off the street.
In effect, the plan was an attempt to transplant the suburban shopping center concept to the heart of downtown Newburyport.
But as the urban renewal plans moved forward and several buildings were demolished, the town's residents were horrified and moved to stop the demolitions. Modern Newburyport only exists because of the efforts of a few concerned individuals and citizens, as well as business members in the community.
Once slated for demolition, these buildings were saved. It took insight in 1965 to see that behind the clutter of signs, aluminum storefronts, and painted bricks were structures that were historically valuable and commercially sound.
Although unique today, Newburyport was nothing special when it was built. It was built how every town was built. Anything you'd ever need was within walking distance. However, most small towns today have lost this. There were no cars. There was no streetcar system. There were not even bikes. Many of the buildings in Newburyport contain commercial storefronts on the ground floor and residential or office space on the upper floors. Although not the original purpose, this allows for a greater tax density in the core of Newburyport. More tax can be collected from the same area as a small single-family home. This style of development also leads to a more diverse set of uses. A downtown can survive the loss of one or even several storefronts. However, if a shopping center were to lose its anchor business, there's a good chance that the shopping center will eventually close, as most large retailers will not occupy the space of a previous big box store. In a similar fashion, if it's decided that a building in the downtown no longer needs its upstairs office space, that office space can be converted into residential, or vice versa. Transit is only needed when the distance to walk becomes too great, and as Newburyport grew, the streetcar system sprung up to serve the community.
People moved easily within the town on a well-developed public transportation system. The streetcar system, with 128 miles of track, served Newburyport and connected the city to other towns of the Merrimack Valley.
Today, although the streetcar system is gone, Newburyport has maintained a rail connection to Boston via the MBTA's Newburyport line. The station is difficult to reach by foot, however, it is still usable by the majority of the town's residents. This is not something that can be said by most communities in America, and especially outside of New England. Newburyport is still not perfect, however. Much of the redevelopment raised home prices to such a point that the former residents could no longer afford to live there. In addition to this, the modern MBTA train station to Boston is only accessible by car or bus to most citizens of the town, unless you're lucky enough to live close to the industrial area where these huge parking lots are. Another issue with modern Newburyport is that although it does have good public transit and train connections, many residents still rely on cars. This is due in large part to the unreliability of the MBTA, as well as a general neglect of investing in public transit in the community. That said, Newburyport is still doing much better than many communities in America, and I find that small New England towns and cities still have good bones, and in the future, if the people decide, it can be further built upon and expanded to allow for a better quality of life. Several new apartment buildings are being built where parking lots once stood. Hopefully, this new transit-oriented development will improve the density of the town, access to the station, as well as rent prices in the community. One topic which I haven't touched on is the sense of community in Newburyport. I had a lot of fun making this video, and walking around Newburyport, you really get a sense of how nice a community it is. And I don't just mean nice in terms of the buildings or nice as in terms of rich. I mean, the people there are just nice. I mean, it's really not what you expect. I have found the people that live in Newburyport to be some of the most kind and straightforward that I've ever met. Walking around there, I met several people who wanted to help me put this together, who gave me information, gave me leads, and from speaking to all those people, I really got a sense of what it means to be a community. My theme for this video was how to save your town, and also looking at some of the elements of what makes a good town. But I think I'd be neglecting that theme if I didn't mention that not only did these people save their town in a physical sense, they didn't just save the buildings, they didn't just save the street or the sidewalks, they saved the community. They kept their community intact, and it's that community which drives Newburyport forward today. So why does any of this matter? It's become clear, thanks to research by Strong Towns and others, that prosperity does not follow the car, nor does it follow the towns changed to suit its endless appetite for more parking or additional lanes. Modern suburban development has bankrupted so many once beautiful towns and places. The car has destroyed so many cities, but its effect on small towns has been nothing short of apocalyptic. It's the reason that you don't know your neighbors. Newburyport is a glimpse at, a shadow of what we've lost. Community. Urban planning is just as, if not more important, in the small towns. Without community and walkability, what is a town but a collection of nice houses with pretty picket fences? And while you may be tempted to quote Robert Frost in saying, "Good fences make good neighbors," you'd be neglecting that he was being sarcastic. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I hope you'll join me as we explore several small New England towns and cities and look at how urban planning is different and applies to each one of them. Maybe you can use it as an example in your own communities. I've never done this before, so I hope you liked it, and if you did, please like or subscribe.